Hi, I'm Mina.
And I'm Yules.
Thanks for tuning in to Artificially Informed.
To the Deep Dive, the show that's really engineered for you, the learner who just wants to cut through all the noise and get right to the core of what's reshaping our world.
Right. We take that mountain of articles, all the research, and we try to distill it down into something you can actually use, something memorable.
And our mission today is, I think, maybe one of the most complex we've ever tackled.
I'd agree with that. The forces at play this week aren't just intersecting, they're colliding. At full speed, we're going to be looking at everything from high-stakes military action to what the future of technology looks like coming out of CES.
And then these scientific discoveries that are they're challenging things we've believed for decades.
It's a lot to unpack.
Okay, so let's set the stage here.
Yeah.
How does the capture of a sitting head of state in Latin America, a renewed threat to basically break NATO over an island in the Arctic?
The arrival of chips designed to put real AI onto your home computer.
And a complete overhaul of the U.S. childhood vaccine schedule. How do all of these things signal these huge shifts in the global landscape?
That really is the big question, isn't it? We're watching the world re-architect itself right now in real time.
New winners, new losers. Let's get into it. We have to start with the event that it stopped everything. The situation in Venezuela.
Right. The core event, based on reports from, multiple outlets, was a very decisive, very high-risk U.S. military operation.
An operation that led directly to the capture of the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro.
This is a massive, massive escalation of global political tension. There's really no other way to put it.
It's historic.
Yep.
And what's so critical is the speed of it all. The extraction, the legal maneuvering that happened almost instantly.
Maduro was taken to the U.S., and he appeared in a Manhattan courtroom. Reports describe this incredibly charged atmosphere.
And he immediately played his card, claiming the status of a prisoner of war.
Right, during his very first appearance.
Which is a very deliberate legal tactic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just a random comment.
Oh, not at all. It's designed to challenge the legitimacy of the whole operation. He's trying to frame it not as a criminal seizure, but as an act of war between two sovereign nations.
So he can try to access international legal protections he probably won't be granted.
Precisely. His legal team is trying to define this entire U.S. action as a fundamental violation of international law.
And then you have the drama outside the courthouse.
It erupted almost instantly. You had clashes between anti-Maduro expatriates who were celebrating his capture.
And then his loyalist supporters, who were condemning the whole thing as an illegal intrusion.
It's like the domestic division of Venezuela just got exported directly onto the streets of New York City.
And on the global stage, the condemnation was just as fast and just as sharp.
Absolutely. The diplomatic fallout was immediate. The United Nations Security Council, or CSSNU, they issued this scathing statement.
Scathing is the right word.
They labeled the U.S. actions, the military intervention, the seizure of a sitting president as an unjustifiable crime.
And we should be clear, this isn't just, routine diplomatic friction. This isn't a sternly worded memo.
No, this is the primary international body using the strongest possible language to describe what a major power just did. It does serious damage to the global consensus on what sovereignty even means.
Okay, so that's the international reaction. But here's the domestic paradox that I think caught a lot of analysts off guard. The relationship between the U.S. government and the press.
Yeah, this was fascinating. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, in comments he released right after the operation was confirmed, he actually praised specific U.S. media outlets.
He named names. The New York Times, the Washington Post.
He did. He praised them for their cooperation. He said they had successfully suppressed news of the raid preemptively.
To ensure operational security. To protect the American personnel involved.
Which is such a complicated admission.
It really is. On the one hand, you have an administration that is often deeply skeptical of these exact news organizations.
Right. And on the other, when the stakes are this high military operations, human lives on the line, there's this recognized need for a strategic information blackout.
And it forces journalists to make these instant ethical decisions. Operational security versus the public's right to know, right now.
It's an incredible ethical tightrope for a newsroom to walk. Do you withhold the information and potentially save lives? Or does that constitute unacceptable government censorship, even if it's just temporary?
And Rubio's statement just lays it all bare. In that moment, the threat to the operation outweighed the competitive drive for the scoop.
For those outlets, it did.
Okay, let's shift immediately to the money, the financial implications. The second this capture was confirmed, the market reacted.
It reacted violently, but very, very selectively. The Dow Jones Industrial Average just soared.
An all-time high, right? It touched levels above 49,000 points.
But that massive spike wasn't broad-based at all. It was almost entirely driven by the energy sector. We saw immediate substantial gains for oil giants.
Chevron and Valero Energy specifically.
They were the big ones. So this wasn't really a sign of overall economic health. It was an immediate, powerful bet on oil supply liberalization.
So investors are just immediately pricing in the idea that Venezuela's oil fields, which are massive,
Some of the largest reserves in the world.
are going to reopen to Western companies after years of sanctions and political chaos.
Exactly. And the expectation is that U.S. companies who already know the geology and the infrastructure there will be first in line.
And former President Donald Trump just poured gasoline on that fire.
He did. He claimed publicly that U.S. oil firms could be up and running in Venezuela, producing crude within 18 months.
18 months. For a massive, complex oil operation to restart after years of mismanagement and decay, it sounds, audacious is a kind of word.
It's an incredibly ambitious timeline. It's designed to reassure the energy markets,
Yeah.
but it really underscores the perceived value here.
And Chevron and Valero have history there.
They do. They have historical ties, operational footprints in the region. That means they are logistically positioned to move faster than any newcomers. So their stock surge just reflects the market's belief that they have the most immediate readiness to tap into that supply.
And yet, outside of that energy bubble, analysts noted this strange overall market indifference, kind of a shrug from other sectors.
This is what analysts are starting to call geopolitical fatigue. Venezuela has been in a state of turmoil for so long
Decades, really.
that the overall stock market outside of the directly impacted oil stocks was relatively unfazed. For most investors, the focus is still on domestic economic indicators: inflation, interest rates, the broader global economy, not just the politics of one country, even one that's so rich in oil.
Okay, let's look at the regional domino effect. Cuba, obviously, is now facing a major crisis.
Cuba is bracing for severe uncertainty. They were one of Maduro's closest political allies. They relied so heavily on Venezuelan support.
We're talking heavily subsidized oil shipments, financial aid.
Crucial financial aid, yes. The instability and the power vacuum in Caracas create a huge economic risk for Havana. They now have to scramble to find new energy sources, new financial backing, just to keep their own country stable. It's going to be a huge challenge for them.
Meanwhile, you've got other countries, like India, trying to walk this very delicate diplomatic tightrope.
India's response was, well, it was notably muted. They put out a statement that was so carefully worded.
They didn't condemn the U.S. They didn't even mention President Trump by name.
Right. Nothing. And this very cautious diplomacy, it just shows India's critical need to navigate its foreign policy right now. They're heavily dependent on oil imports. They're navigating a volatile global economy.
So they can't afford to alienate a powerful trading partner like the U.S.
Exactly. They have to maintain stable relationships while securing their essential energy supplies. It's a classic case of economic necessity just dictating geopolitical restraint.
And on a totally different front, border control, the Trump administration is using this moment to implement a new asylum mechanism.
Yes, the administration reached a new agreement with the Caribbean nation of Dominica.
And this is part of that broader, sustained effort to reshape U.S. immigration policy.
It is. The agreement is designed to redirect asylum seekers who are apprehended and denied entry in the U.S. They'll be sent to Dominica, where they would then have to apply for asylum.
And the strategic goal there is what? Deterrence?
It's twofold. First, to alleviate pressure on U.S. facilities, and second, yes, to act as a major deterrent against future illegal crossings by making the whole process much more geographically and logistically complicated.
But the critics are already raising flags.
Immediately. They're raising ethical and logistical questions about placing this huge administrative and financial burden on a smaller nation like Dominica. They argue the responsibility should really remain with the destination country.
Okay, let's switch continents entirely. Let's look at the Middle East, which is facing its own tremendous pressure right now, with widespread unrest erupting in Iran.
The sources here are indicating just profound and spreading public dissatisfaction. These anti-government demonstrations are being fueled by severe, long-standing economic hardship.
The cost of living crisis.
A crushing cost of living crisis across the entire country. And the scale of these protests is massive. We're talking over 50 cities more than 250 different locations across 27 of Iran's 31 provinces.
So this is not localized. This is a deep, broad challenge to the regime.
A very deep challenge to the 4-decade-old theocratic regime, yes.
And the human rights situation appears to be escalating dramatically.
It is, and it's drawing a lot of international concern. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has voiced deep concern, and the details we're hearing are truly disturbing.
Initial reports are what, at least 20 people killed?
At least 20, including 3 children. Hundreds more, also including minors, have been arrested. But perhaps the most egregious incident being reported is that security forces allegedly raided hospitals in the Western Islam province.
Raiding hospitals to do what?
To specifically detain demonstrators who were seeking medical treatment for their injuries.
And the U.S. State Department has already labeled that a crime against humanity.
They did, quickly and very sternly.
So this spiraling domestic situation has prompted a very aggressive response from the U.S. administration.
It has, dramatically escalating tensions between Washington and Tehran. President Trump pledged strong support for the Iranian protesters, and then he threatened potential military intervention.
Use that explicit phrase, "We are locked and loaded and ready to go."
That's right, which is a massive ratcheting up of the already tense situation. And of course, Iran responded by petitioning the UN to condemn what they call these unlawful threats from the U.S.
So it just adds another layer to this immense global political instability we're tracking this week.
It's a very dangerous cycle. Domestic strife is quickly attracting aggressive international rhetoric.
From the explosive geopolitics of the Middle East and Latin America, we now pivot to the frozen politics of the Arctic, specifically Greenland.
Right. And this region is now becoming the center of another major diplomatic crisis between the U.S. and its key allies.
President Trump and senior aide Stephen Miller have, once again, reiterated this belief that the U.S. should move to annex Greenland.
And the focus here is purely strategic and resource-driven. They're citing Greenland's critical importance in the Arctic, its control over vital sea lanes, and crucially, its vast, untapped mineral resources.
This is all about the rising competition with Russia and China in the Arctic Circle.
Absolutely. The administration views U.S. control over Greenland as basically non-negotiable for national security.
But this rhetoric has created an almost existential crisis for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, for NATO.
That's not an exaggeration. The Danish Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, issued an unbelievably strong warning.
She said unequivocally that if the U.S. were to attempt any aggressive move toward annexing Greenland, which is Danish territory, it would effectively spell the end of NATO.
And she went even further. She emphasized that any act of aggression against a NATO member stops all cooperation. It immediately compromises the fundamental collective defense pact of the entire alliance.
I mean, that is the highest level of diplomatic alarm you can imagine. We're talking about dissolving the treaty that has maintained Western stability since the Second World War.
Exactly. It just turns the entire premise of NATO Article 5, the idea that an attack on one is an attack on all, it turns it into a complete farce.
It's like reintroducing imperial ambition right into the core of the Western world.
And the European allies, led by UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, they all swiftly backed Denmark. They condemned Trump's threats as anachronistic and profoundly detrimental.
The consensus is clear. The future of that island has to be determined by the people of Greenland and Denmark.
And only them?
This whole incident just seems to perfectly encapsulate the tension between the Trump administration's America First, unilateral self-interest.
And the collective defense system that NATO is supposed to represent.
It just shows a fundamental difference in how they see the world.
It does. Europe sees these alliances as essential stabilizing mechanisms. The U.S. administration seems to view them as transactional burdens unless they provide some immediate, tangible benefit.
I saw one European defense specialist, Frederick Morrow, who basically summed it up by urging leaders to keep calm and stay united.
And to adopt a more vocal, unified stance in defending their shared integrity. He's right.
Okay, moving from cold diplomacy to climate policy and some pretty major legal battles. We're seeing a lot of friction over renewable energy in the U.S.
This is a huge lawsuit. A whole coalition of offshore wind energy developers is suing the Trump administration.
And this is over the unilateral halt of 5 major offshore wind projects along the eastern seaboard.
Right. And this is not small money. This jeopardizes $25 billion in carefully planned investments.
Not to mention thousands of projected jobs.
Thousands of jobs in the renewable sector, all for projects that were basically ready to break ground.
So what's the central argument the developers are making in court?
They're arguing the halt is devastating on two fronts. First, it actively impedes the U.S.'s clean energy transition goals. But second, and maybe more importantly, it fundamentally undermines U.S. global competitiveness.
They're pointing to the global context.
Exactly. They highlight that countries like China, Germany, and the UK currently dominate the global offshore wind capacity, which stands at about 64.3 gigawatts globally. Stalling U.S. projects just guarantees the U.S. falls even further behind.
And they're saying the administration's stated reasons, things like national security or environmental concerns,
Are unfounded and politically motivated. That's their core legal argument.
and then we also see the deeply personal impact of these swift policy changes on the actual scientist.
We do. There's the case of Libby Jewett, who is a highly respected pioneer in ocean acidification research at NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
And her career was just derailed by federal workforce cuts.
Abruptly derailed. And what's so telling is that she had just transitioned her focus to the applied science of offshore wind energy permitting. She was embodying the exact shift we need from researching climate impacts to developing climate solutions.
And her work was just cut short.
It's a stark reminder of the immense fragility of these specialized science initiatives when the political winds change so quickly.
Now, across the Atlantic, the electric vehicle market in the UK is facing a pretty stark reality check.
Yeah, the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, the SMMT, over in the UK, they issued a pretty significant financial warning.
They're saying the current consumer discounts on electric vehicles, or EVs, are just unsustainable.
Right, which indicates this dangerous structural gap is emerging between the government's very ambitious EV adoption targets.
Which kind of necessitates these steep discounts to get people to buy.
Exactly. And the actual long-term consumer demand needed to sustain the industry's production costs and, profit margins.
So the industry is succeeding in moving the cars right now, but they're basically doing it at a loss, which you can't do forever.
Precisely. The core issue is still the high cost of the components, especially the batteries, and the slower than hoped for rollout of widespread, reliable charging infrastructure. The SMMT is really pressing the government for more realistic, long-term supportive policies instead of just temporary consumer incentives that are killing profitability.
And staying in Europe, let's look at the continent's big economic engine, Germany. They are sounding a major alarm.
Chancellor Friedrich Merz issued this highly unusual and very public business SOS. It was in a letter to his coalition allies.
And he described the state of the economy as very critical.
Citing persistent problems, stagnant growth, rising job losses, and these cripplingly high labor and energy costs.
And those factors are hitting the German manufacturing sector, the traditional backbone of their economy, especially hard.
Right. So he's urgently calling for unity and action on deep economic reforms to stop the country from sliding into a full-blown recession.
And all this economic turmoil is generating real friction in the fields, literally, with French farmers mobilizing against EU policy.
Yeah, French farmers are continuing these widespread, often disruptive protests against the proposed EU-Mercosur trade agreement.
Their fear is palpable. They're worried about a massive influx of cheaper South American agricultural products.
Beef, sugar, ethanol. They worry it's going to severely undermine their livelihoods and just intensify the competition in an already squeezed European market.
And that pressure is being compounded by reports that Italy is now actively backing the pact.
Right, which just increases the feeling in Paris that they have to protect their domestic farmers from what they see as unfair, lower-cost competition.
Okay, let's pivot now.
Okay.
Let's go from the political battlefield to the technological one. The Consumer Electronics Show, CES 2026 in Las Vegas. It revealed a monumental shift this year.
A huge shift. Specifically a focus on the evolution of digital AI into physical AI. But first, we have to talk about the chip war.
It is getting intensely competitive.
It is a complete arms race for silicon dominance, and this year's CES was basically the declaration of war. Qualcomm made a really significant move in the mobile and laptop space.
They unveiled a new ARM-based 10-core CPU, the central processing unit.
And the engineering breakthrough here is a reported 35% increase in single-core processing power.
Paired with drastically better battery life.
Which is the holy grail. That 35% jump is a direct challenge to the established laptop chip makers. It could rapidly expand access to high-performance mobile computing.
But that threat was countered just as quickly.
Oh, immediately. AMD Advanced Micro Devices, they just doubled down on specialized artificial intelligence processing. They introduced the Ryzen AI Max series processors.
And these are specifically optimized for general use in gaming, right?
Right. This is a massive push towards integrating true neural processing units, or NPUs, directly into consumer hardware. This allows for on-device AI operations like video rendering or language processing without having to rely on the cloud.
And they also introduced a new architecture.
Yes. They launched the Ryzen Z2 mobile processors, which feature the high-performance Zen 5 architecture and RDNA 3.5 graphics.
Zen 5 is their latest and greatest.
It's their latest advancement, designed for superior efficiency and higher throughput, aiming squarely at the demanding gaming and AI markets that just require intense computational speed.
So what was Intel's major response to all this?
Intel launched its highly anticipated Core Ultra Series 3 CPUs, and the critical factor here is the manufacturing process. These are the first chips to be produced using Intel's long-awaited 18A process.
And the A stands for angstrom. We're talking about incredibly tiny transistor sizes.
Right, it's a 1.8 nanometer equivalent. This manufacturing node is crucial because it determines how densely and efficiently you can pack transistors onto a chip. Successfully scaling production on 18A is Intel's signal that they are aggressively committed to patching up and competing in the next generation.
So the big implication here is that AI is no longer just something happening in the cloud. It's coming to the device you hold in your hand.
That's the perfect way to put it. And it leads us right to NVIDIA's major theme for the show: physical AI.
This was the buzzword of the week.
And it really represents a tectonic shift. The Nvidia CEO, Jensen Huang, he emphasized that CES 2026 marks a pivotal moment for robotics.
And physical AI means what exactly?
It means using synthetic data training AI models in these vast virtual simulation environments and then transferring those learned models into physical machines for practical, real-world operation.
So you could teach a robot to navigate a complex warehouse thousands of times in a simulation before it ever even steps onto the real floor.
Exactly. And their specific offering to lead this shift is a new OpenAI model called Alpameo.
And this is designed to allow autonomous vehicles and robots to think like a human.
Right. It integrates reasoning, vision, language, and action capabilities. And NVIDIA's explicit goal here, their stated goal, is to become the Android of generalist robotics.
So they want to set the foundational operating system standard for all AI-powered machines.
Across every single sector, leveraging their unparalleled graphics processing expertise.
That is an immense ambition. And we're already seeing the immediate results of this push in what people are calling the humanoid robot race.
And the most eye-popping plans came from Hyundai.
Right. They announced these exceptionally ambitious plans to deploy and manufacture 30,000 humanoid robots annually by 2028.
At their U.S. factories. And they're leveraging their existing partnership with the famed robotics firm, Boston Dynamics. This isn't just a prototype. This is a serious industrial manufacturing commitment. We're talking mass deployment within the next 5 years.
And Boston Dynamics itself is getting a major intelligence upgrade.
They are. They're integrating with a huge AI player. The next generation Atlas robot from Boston Dynamics will now integrate Google DeepMind's powerful Gemini 2.0 AI models.
And that will allow the AI to process images, text, sensor data all at once.
Which is expected to dramatically enhance Atlas's dexterity, its balance, its fine motor functions, making its movements even more nuanced and human-like in complex, real-world environments.
Okay, moving from humanoids to autonomous mobility. Uber made a major splash with Robotaxis.
A huge splash. Uber unveiled its new Robotaxi, which is the product of a massive new alliance.
They partnered with Lucid Motors.
Right, involving a substantial $300 million investment from Uber into Lucid, and also with Neuro, which is providing the autonomous driving technology and logistical expertise.
And the plan is to deploy over 20,000 Lucid Gravity SUVs equipped with this tech in major U.S. cities by late 2026.
It's a huge commitment, and it sets the stage for a significant challenge to existing autonomous players like Waymo.
Now, on the consumer side, I love this next development because it's trying to solve one of the major paradoxes of modern tech.
Too much screen time.
Exactly.
It's a genius countermove. Lego announced Smart Bricks, which is an evolution of their beloved 1998 Mindstorms concept.
And the focus is on merging that classic, tangible Lego building fun with sophisticated technology.
To encourage cognitive skills like spatial reasoning and sequencing, but crucially, to provide non-screen interactive play. It directly addresses that immense pressure parents feel to limit digital device time without just abandoning technology completely.
We also saw some smart home advancements that are really pushing the boundary of, hands-free convenience.
Narwhal unveiled the Flow 2 AI-driven robot vacuum, and the whole emphasis is on total autonomy. It uses a hybrid AI system, part cloud processing for long-term mapping, part on-device processing for immediate object avoidance.
The whole design is about minimal user intervention.
And at the same time, Anker released a simple but highly practical innovation, a smart charger that automatically adjusts its power delivery to optimize the charging cycle and protect your device's battery from long-term degradation.
Finally, in the tech world, we can't ignore the immediate ethical backlash that this rapidly deployed AI has already triggered.
Specifically with Elon Musk's Grok.
The Grok AI bot, which operates on the X platform, it faced intense and immediate government scrutiny across Europe, India, and Malaysia.
And this was after credible reports emerged that the bot was generating inappropriate sexualized images of women and children.
Which just highlights this immense ethical and legal crisis we're facing with these rapidly deployed, often under-tested generative AI tools.
And critics are demanding immediate, stringent measures to enforce safeguards against this kind of misuse and, unintended harmful outputs.
It's a necessary check on the otherwise celebratory mood of CES.
Yeah.
And we saw a very stark counterpoint to that algorithmic failure over in Germany.
Yes. A very controversial but thought-provoking demonstration of hacktivism at the Chaos Communication Congress, or CCC. A hacktivist named Martha Root performed a live, on-stage deletion of 3 known white supremacist websites.
Which underscores the very complex, often morally gray use of hacking skills to combat hate speech online.
Right. While it was unauthorized, the act generated this significant debate about whether such direct digital action is a necessary countermeasure to the unchecked spread of online extremism.
Okay, let's move into the world of science and health. And this is where we're finding breakthroughs that could fundamentally change how we even view the human body. From the gut, up.
Right, let's start with the gut-brain axis, which is proving to be far more central to our cognitive function than anyone previously imagined.
This is truly revolutionary research.
It really is. It demonstrates this profound causal connection. In one particularly striking study, scientists transferred intestinal microbes, the gut flora, from different primate species, like humans and chimpanzees, into lab mice.
Wait, just to be clear, they swapped the gut bacteria, and the mice's brains started to change.
That is the stunning implication. Researchers found that the mice's brains began adopting measurable functional characteristics of the host species that provided the microbes.
So, for example, mice that got microbes from primates with larger, more complex brains.
They showed enhanced neurological activity, improved energy pathways in the brain, specifically affecting mitochondrial function, and measurably superior learning pathways in cognitive tests.
So the type of bacteria you have in your gut might not just influence your mood, it could literally affect your intelligence and your capacity to learn.
That is the direction the evidence is pointing. It suggests gut bacteria profoundly impact cognitive function and learning, and potentially even exacerbate or mitigate mental health conditions like anxiety and depression.
It really redefines the gut, from a simple digestive tract to like a core component of the central nervous system.
That's what it looks like.
And speaking of the brain, there's a major paradigm shift in how we understand the mechanism behind drugs used to treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD.
This challenges decades of accepted medical concepts. For years, the established belief was that stimulant medications for ADHD, like Adderall or Ritalin,
Worked primarily by just enhancing attention and focus. Simple as that.
and new detailed neuroimaging studies are completely challenging this. The research now shows that these stimulant drugs primarily enhance the brain's reward, motivation, and wakefulness systems.
So they're targeting the dopamine and noradrenaline pathways associated with drive and energy.
Exactly, which is a fundamental clinical difference. The drugs are definitely working, patients are benefiting, but the mechanism physicians thought they were targeting, it's not the right one.
The understanding of why it works has completely changed.
And that new knowledge could lead to better, more tailored treatments. Instead of solely trying to force focus, future treatments might focus on maximizing motivation and reward responsiveness, which seems to be the primary action. It also opens up new pathways for developing effective non-stimulant drugs that target these specific circuits.
We also have some crucial breakthroughs in opioid safety, which is just desperately needed right now.
Researchers at USF Health have made significant progress here. They've developed experimental compounds that selectively target specific opioid receptors in the body.
And the goal is simple but vital.
It is to enhance pain relief effectiveness while significantly mitigating that dangerous, often fatal, side effect of respiratory depression.
That's the slowing or stopping of breathing that causes overdose fatalities.
Exactly. These new compounds are engineered to activate the pain relief pathways without activating the specific downstream cellular pathways that lead to respiratory shutdown.
Which could be a blueprint for much safer, long-lasting opioids.
A total transformation for pain management without the immense risk.
And here's an incredible finding in drug repurposing for a major organ condition: liver fibrosis. I love these stories.
They're so exciting because they can accelerate the clinical timeline so dramatically. Researchers found that a simple combination of 2 existing FDA-approved drugs was highly effective.
The drugs are Silibin, which is a milk thistle derivative,
And carvedilol, a beta blocker that's primarily prescribed for hypertension and heart failure.
and when you combine them,
They drastically targeted and reduced liver scarring and collagen buildup in liver fibrosis models.
and the fact that both are already FDA approved is just. That's the key for patients who are waiting.
It dramatically accelerates the timeline. A new drug can take a decade or more. Because these are already deemed safe for human use, they can move directly into advanced clinical trials for this new application so much faster. It's a huge deal for patients.
We also saw some new insights in multiple sclerosis, or MS, research.
Yes, suggesting that targeting neuronal energy systems, specifically protecting the function of mitochondria, the cell's power plants, could be a key strategy to protect neurons from degradation.
And finally, a piece of science that literally leapt off the earth and immediately benefited oncology patients.
This is thanks to research conducted aboard the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's International Space Station, the ISS.
It just highlights the unexpected payoffs of investing in space exploration.
It does. NASA's ISS research focused on crystal growth in a microgravity environment. And in collaboration with the pharmaceutical company Merck, this research led directly to the FDA approval of a subcutaneous or under-the-skin version of the critical cancer treatment pembrolizumab.
And the impact on the patient experience is profound.
It is genuinely transformative. This new delivery method reduces the administration time from a standard 2-hour 5E infusion,
Which requires a chair, a pump, constant monitoring.
to just a 1-minute subcutaneous injection. Microgravity allowed for the growth of larger, higher-quality crystals essential for this new, highly concentrated formulation. It's an advancement born in orbit that's leading to immediate, practical improvements in cancer care.
All right, this next section takes us into one of the most contentious policy debates in the U.S. right now: a significant overhaul of the U.S. childhood vaccine schedule.
And this move has immediately polarized the public health community and politicians. It's a huge deal.
U.S. government announced a major policy shift. They're now recommending significantly fewer mandatory shots for children.
The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, is aligning its schedule more closely with recommendations from certain European countries like Denmark, which favor a more minimal required vaccine list.
And this effectively abolishes decades of universal, comprehensive childhood vaccination guidance in the U.S.
It does, and the political alignment here is absolutely critical to understanding the controversy.
It's being strongly endorsed by figures including President Donald Trump and the Health Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.,
who, of course, has a long public history of expressing controversial views on vaccines' safety and efficacy.
And they're defending this new guidance as, what, promoting individual choice and addressing public distrust.
Right. But the backlash from the established medical organizations has been intense and completely unified.
Organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP, and the American Medical Association, the AMA.
They've all expressed deep, deep disapproval. Their warning is stark. They argue that abolishing this universal guidance could severely jeopardize public health.
Therefore, seeing a dangerous decrease in vaccination rates.
And an inevitable resurgence of preventable diseases, measles, mumps, whooping cough, diseases the U.S. had largely suppressed through decades of high vaccination compliance.
So they're essentially demanding a return to public health policy that's driven by clear, long-established scientific consensus, not by political alignment.
And the fear of widespread outbreaks is very real, especially since vaccination rates have already been declining in parts of the U.S. over the last few years.
It feels like a critical crossroads for public health infrastructure.
It is. And critics are pointing out that this new policy was implemented immediately, without the typical multi-year expert review process that the CDC historically requires. That lack of a solid evidential foundation for such a drastic change is seen as setting a very dangerous precedent.
And adding a real sense of urgency to this debate is the fact that we're in the middle of a severe influenza crisis right now.
We're tracking what is being termed a severe superflu season. The trends are comparable to the very challenging epidemic of last winter.
And the metrics are alarming. Hospitalizations due to the flu have nearly doubled in just 1 week.
And approximately 30 U.S. states are currently in the CDC's highest tier for flu activity, all because of a particularly infectious and virulent strain.
And we are already seeing the tragic consequences of this strain, especially in the younger population.
Unfortunately, yes. Officials in Massachusetts reported 3 pediatric deaths linked to the flu just this season.
Which just highlights the severe risk, and it's prompted urgent calls for vaccination and vigilance.
Right. To combat the outbreak and mitigate the immense pressure on the healthcare system, we're seeing hospital crowding in multiple regions.
Now, within flu treatment itself, there's a surprising and, frankly, reassuring safety reversal regarding the drug Tamiflu.
This is a really important piece of research for parents and for clinicians. For years, the antiviral drug Tamiflu, or oseltamivir, was burdened by these reports suggesting it caused severe neuropsychiatric events in children.
Seizures, confusion, hallucinations.
All of it. New research offers a complete reversal. It conclusively demonstrates that those adverse events are actually caused by the intense influenza virus infection itself, specifically high fevers and viral encephalopathy, not the medication.
So the drug was unfairly blamed for the symptoms of the severe disease it was being used to treat.
Precisely. And this new insight is crucial for reassuring parents and clinicians about Tamiflu's safety profile and encouraging its timely use during a severe flu season like this one.
And wrapping up health policy, we did see some encouraging advancements in accessibility for cancer detection.
Yes. Federal screening guidance has expanded cervical cancer testing options. It now includes an at-home human papillomavirus, or HPV, self-swab option.
Which is a huge step in reducing barriers to detection, especially for women in remote areas.
And crucially, this at-home option is now mandated to be covered by most private insurance plans, which really empowers people to take charge of their own preventative health.
We also have a major product safety alert.
Nestlé initiated a voluntary recall of some of their baby formula products. This was due to concerns over potential toxin contamination found during their own internal quality control checks.
And they've reported no immediate adverse effects yet, but it's a precautionary measure.
A very important one, reflecting the critically high importance of safety protocols in infant nutrition.
And one final fascinating update on road safety coming out of the United Kingdom.
The British government announced a new national road safety strategy that targets age-related impairment. It's going to require drivers aged 70 and over to undergo mandatory eye tests every 3 years to keep their license.
And this stems from statistical concerns that age-related vision impairment significantly increases crash risks.
Right. And while it's aimed at ensuring safer roads, it naturally sparks that wider public debate about the balance between public safety and the independence of older drivers.
Okay, let's launch into our final section, starting with some celestial wonders and deep space exploration. NASA's Hubble telescope has delivered yet another unique discovery.
A structure that scientists are actually terming a failed galaxy.
A failed galaxy, I love that.
It's a truly unique cosmic feature. It's been designated Cloud 9. It's this vast structure, about 4,900 light-years in diameter, and it's made almost entirely of neutral hydrogen gas.
So initial surveys thought it might be a faint dwarf galaxy.
Right, but Hubble's advanced camera confirmed conclusively that it contains absolutely no stars, which led the principal investigator, Alejandro Benitez-Lambé, to describe it as a failed galaxy.
So it's this massive structure of gas, and presumably dark matter, that for whatever reason never managed to ignite star formation. It just fizzled out.
That is the leading hypothesis. It's theorized to be a vast, pristine, dark matter halo that never managed to gather enough mass or density to start fusion.
Which is incredibly valuable for science.
It is, because it sheds light on the earliest stages of galaxy formation and gives us a chance to study these starless structures that might be remnants of cosmic evolution right after the Big Bang.
And speaking of space, NASA is receiving robust bipartisan support for its mission, which is flying in the face of the executive budget requests.
It is. Congress decisively rejected President Trump's proposed budget cuts for the space agency. Instead, they proposed a robust $24.4 billion allocation for NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, for 2026.
That's nearly $6 billion more than the president had requested.
It is. And it indicates this strong, sustained legislative commitment to maintaining U.S. leadership in space and ensuring the continuation of things like the Artemis missions to the moon and planned exploration of Mars.
And another major observatory is already giving us this unprecedented map of the cosmos.
That's NASA's Sphere-X Observatory, which stands for Spectrophotometer for the History of the Universe, Epoch of Reionization, and ICES Explorer.
A bit of a mouthful.
It is, but it just released its first sky map. And this mission is groundbreaking because it details the entire sky in 102 distinct infrared colors.
And the goal is to basically act like a cosmic census taker.
Precisely. To investigate the distribution of galaxies influenced by the Big Bang, and crucially, to map the location of life-essential elements like water and organic molecules across the universe. It's going to enhance our understanding of cosmology in a huge way.
Okay, moving from the cosmos to Cold War secrets dredged up from the deep sea. Let's talk about the once classified CIA operation known as Project Azorian.
Project Azorian is one of the most audacious, incredible intelligence operations of the 20th century. This was back in 1974.
And the goal was to secretly locate and recover a sunken Soviet K-129 nuclear ballistic missile submarine.
Which had been lost in the Pacific Ocean back in 1968.
And to pull this off, the CIA had to create this elaborate, almost Hollywood-worthy cover story.
The cover story was masterful. They enlisted the billionaire Howard Hughes, claiming his specially built vessel, the Hughes Glomar Explorer, was engaged in deep-sea mining for manganese nodules.
A plausible, if a little unusual, commercial venture at the time.
But the 618-foot vessel was heavily modified. It had this innovative recovery system with a massive, complex mechanical claw designed specifically to grasp the heavy Soviet sub from the ocean floor.
And we're talking a depth of over 3 miles.
Over 3 miles down.
So, did they succeed?
They had partial success. Because of the technical challenges and the immense depth, the submarine actually broke apart during the retrieval. They only recovered fragments of the forward section.
But those fragments yielded crucial intelligence.
Oh, yes. Torpedoes, code books, incredible insights into Soviet underwater capabilities and their technology. The operation, even with its partial success, just symbolizes the ingenuity, the immense cost, and the high-stakes ethical complexity of Cold War intelligence gathering.
Now, on a more somber historical note, we do have to acknowledge the passing of a vital figure connected to the Holocaust.
Tributes followed the death of Eva Schloss at the age of 96.
She was the stepsister of Anne Frank and a dedicated lifelong Holocaust survivor.
And she spent her later life preserving the memory of the millions who were lost, tirelessly advocating for human rights, promoting tolerance, and urging cross-cultural understanding. Her legacy continues to resonate globally.
Finally, let's look at some earthly perils, starting with the breakthrough in disaster modeling, thanks to new satellite tech.
NASA's SWAT satellite, that's Surface Water and Ocean Topography, it tracked an 8.8 magnitude tsunami that occurred off Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula.
And the key revelation here directly challenges the traditional scientific models of these waves.
It does. The data showed that tsunamis propagate in these highly complex, irregular patterns. They are not the stable, single, uniform waves we see in the models.
So they have significant, rapidly changing variations in height and shape.
And they sometimes interact dynamically with the ocean floor in ways we didn't expect. This new insight is vital for improving future tsunami warning systems, for making them faster and more localized.
And we also have 2 tragic accident stories that are highlighting some critical regulatory failures. Let's start in Switzerland.
A devastating New Year's fire at the Lou Constellation Bar in the ski resort town of Crans, Montana. It claimed 40 lives and injured 116 people.
And the tragedy was compounded by the mayor's shocking revelation that the establishment hadn't been inspected for fire safety compliance for 5 years before the incident.
Which is raising serious national scrutiny over fire safety protocols, regulatory oversight, and accountability in public venues, especially these crowded, high-volume hotspots.
And finally, extreme weather is crippling the United Kingdom.
An intense Arctic blast is forecasted to persist across the UK. Temperatures could plunge to a dangerous -12°C in some regions.
And the severe, sustained cold is causing significant disruptions to critical national infrastructure.
Major road and rail travel is being affected. It's leading to widespread school closures and forcing authorities to issue urgent warnings to the public about the severe risks of hypothermia and frostbite.
So this week has just been an extraordinary demonstration of the friction between global superpowers and, at the same time, the accelerating pace of technology.
Absolutely. We saw that immediate market shock after the U.S. military action in Venezuela, which drove the Dow to record highs purely on the prospect of more oil.
Even as global diplomatic condemnation was just raining down from the UN.
And concurrently, you saw that pivot at CES 2026, from purely digital AI to physical AI. The most powerful chip companies are vying for dominance, and industrial giants like Hyundai are planning mass deployment of humanoids.
While at the very same time, the ethical crisis of rapidly deployed AI, like the Grok controversy, came into really sharp focus.
And then on the public health front, we're navigating a dangerous superflu season while dealing with these highly controversial policy decisions, spearheaded by figures like President Trump and Health Secretary Kennedy Jr., to roll back decades of universal vaccine guidance.
Which medical organizations warned could dangerously compromise community immunity and lead to entirely preventable outbreaks.
It really feels like a world where geopolitical self-interest, especially that aggressive pursuit of critical resources like oil in Venezuela and strategic minerals in Greenland, it's paramount.
You see the U.S. willing to leverage military action, and at the same time threaten the core stability of its foundational NATO alliance to secure those interests.
It's a huge contradiction.
So, as you process this flood of global information, here's the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. When national self-interest clashes so violently with international agreements and foundational alliances like NATO, what is the ultimate price paid, not just financially, but in terms of global trust and shared security for geopolitical instability in an increasingly connected but still fundamentally fragile world?
That tension really does define the moment we're in.
Thank you for engaging in another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
You're enjoying Artificially Informed.
Hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
From the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Artificially Informed.
Nope. Thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah.
Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.